in my last video, I had I had mentioned at the beginning about some tools and jigs and fixtures and things I'd been working on in my planer that I got from my uncle who found it at a pawn shop. It's in really bad shape. Got it fixed. Runs great now. Planes real well. And but a couple other things I talked about in that video was a planer blade sharpener, a planer blade sharpening jig. That's what I built right here, and I'll talk about that a little bit here in a few minutes. And a saw blade sharpening jig that I've got right here. The planer blade sharpener was pretty much my idea, or at least the way it's built. I haven't seen another one built like it anyway. But the saw blade sharpener came straight from Jim Steinbrecker's design, and I'll leave a link to his YouTube video that I used to build this with, and down in the description, and maybe even right here. I don't know. But anyway, we'll start talking about the planer first. Now this planer had been severely abused, and a lot of things were wrong with it. The feed rollers were tore out, were just shredded. The knives were chipped and had burn marks on them, and just really bad things. But anyway, the day he brought the planer over here, I didn't even realize he had one. He just called me and said, meet me outside. So I met him outside, and he had a planer on the back of his truck. But the bed was rusted really bad, and it wouldn't raise and lower. It was just a terrible condition. But I told him, I said, I'll fix this thing, and I did. First thing I did was I went to Jet, and I downloaded the owner's manual for that planer. It's the JPM 13 CS. Anytime, if you ever get a tool like that or something, and you know, you want to start working on it and trying to get it back in shape, first thing to do is get the owner's manual. I've basically got my table saw the exact same way. A buddy called me up. He found it. He wanted the cast iron top as an extension wing on his own. He found my table saw in a salvage yard, flipped upside down, table down in the mud. And it was very bad rusted, but the motor worked. So instead of using the table as an extension wing on his, he gave me the entire saw. Took it apart, cleaned everything up really good, and this saw is not pretty. By no means it's not pretty, but it is true and it is strong, and it makes good cuts. I'm proud of it. But we're going to go out here and we're going to talk about this planer a little bit. Okay, this is my planer, and well, of course I've got it unplugged. I just want to talk a little bit about what I found when I got this thing. This bed, the bed was absolutely completely rusted. It was surface rust. It was orange colored. The in-feed and out-feed support rollers, they were bent and, you know, just all out of shape. And in order to get the table to working, I had to beat it up and down as I turned the vice grips that they were using for a handle. I would turn it and I would beat the table up and down to get it where it should be. The screw here, it turns another screw on the other side via a chain that runs across, and it was all binding up. But I got all this mess cleaned up. I used about 1.5 cans of PB Blaster. Got everything, got all the rust cleaned off and everything like that off the posts. And I went through my owner's manual from Jet, and they told me what kind of grease I needed and lubrication and stuff like that. Went through, cleaned everything, lubricated everything up good, and now the table rises and falls very, very smoothly. So anyway, we're going to look at some of the rest of this thing. right quick. First of all, you'll notice I made a new hand wheel. It's a 5-inch hand wheel I just turned on the lathe, and it works really well, really smooth. And I've got all the mechanics working really well now, thank goodness. But the feed roller in here, this is the out feed roller that you can see down here. The in feed roller is up under here. They were completely shredded, and here's one of them right here. You can see, I mean, you can see how they abused this thing. I believe what they did was they adjusted the knives. They adjusted these knives out about another 1/8 of an inch deeper than what the little setup thing would normally set it at. So I bought one of these. I bought 2 feed rollers, and I went to work, and this thing cuts like a dream now. But the knives were destroyed. I mean, they were nicked and burnt and everything else. But I just went through and going according to my owner's manual, and I stripped this thing down, cleaned it up, and you can tell I've been using it, and it planes really well now. Well, I'm going to set up and do you a little demonstration right quick. Alright, what I've got here is just a rough cut piece of oak, and I had it sawmilled down a couple of years ago, and it's good and dry now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to plane some of this. I haven't jointed the other face. It's pretty flat, but I haven't jointed the other face. I got a little anxious to come out here and do my video. But anyway, I'm gonna finish getting this thing set up to run. Okay. Safety glasses. Alright. I'm gonna fire it up. Show you how to run. Working down slow. No snipe. Well, I got a little bit right there. No snipe on that one. Smooth board all the way. No snipe on this end. No snipe on this end. Now we're going to try going on the other side. Got it. as you can see, I've got a good plain board. Now I could have, you know, taken it to whatever thickness I wanted. This planer will do up to 6 1/8 inch, but that's a pretty board there. I didn't joint it, but the board is very straight anyway, and all I have to do now is come back and joint the edge, cut the other side on the table saw. Let's go in and check this out. Okay. Alright, well, this is my saw blade sharpener, and if you notice, I have this little diamond wheel right here. This is a sharpening wheel. Actually, I found it at Harbor Freight. It was for their saw blade sharpeners, and I just bought one of the replacements, and that's what I'm using. But that's as high as that thing sticks up out of the table. But anyway, we're talking about this thing right now. So let's look at what we've got here. Basically, we've got two runners that run in your miter slots, okay, and they are a certain height, and we've got this slide right here that moves back and forth, and then this piece back here is just a support. Okay, so this thing slides in and out of your miter slots, and I've got it. It's a really kind of a tight fit, so I don't have any slop. But this here has got a bolt that goes all the way through. That will allow the mounting block to turn and rotate. But I've got it set where I want it right now. This right here is it's a 5/8 plug that I made to hold the blade, just like so. Right? So it goes through the arbor hole, and it mounts in here, pushed up firmly. Now, as a matter of fact, I think I've actually got it mounted backwards. Let me spin it around. It's really tight. Jim Steinbrecker, when he built this on YouTube, he built one, and I'll let you watch his for to see the actual build. He'll go into more detail than I am, but I'll leave the link to his thing down there. Okay, what we're looking at here is these teeth. Each one is offset. Okay, so, and I've already sharpened this blade, but what I want to do is every other tooth is offset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark these teeth. I'm going to mark every other tooth. Alright, I'll mark every other tooth all the way around. And then I'll mark my starting point with a different color, like red. Okay, so if I want to start on that tooth, I'm going to back this up here. Now, what you have to do is you have to figure out the angle of the tooth. And the only way I've found to do that, because I can't get a protractor in there that small to really read the angle good, is I brought it in and I left my mounting block a little bit loose, but where it would still hold, but where I could still turn it. And I would just touch the blade. I would just touch the blade right here to the side and check it to see if it was touching the entire face. And what I found was that this blade has a 5-degree set on each tooth. So every other tooth is 5 degrees this way, and then every other tooth is 5 degrees that way. So you want to stand to one side and start your table saw up, pull this thing in, and just touch the blade with your carbide teeth. Just touch it for just a second, back it up, rotate it, bring it back in, touch it again, and make sure you're cutting the entire tooth. You're cutting a flat spot on that whole tooth. Back it up, go again, alright, and just hold it until you get all the way back around to your red dot. That was your first tooth. So you know that's done. Now we have to change it around. Back this thing up just a second so I can turn it around. And what I did was I marked my block at 5 degrees. I marked my block at 5 degrees. So I loosen this up and I turn it to the other 5-degree mark right there. And I'll tighten it back down. And then I'm ready to start on the other. Okay? So now I'll start at the red dot. And I'll come in and I'll sharpen the other set. Just like this. Back it up. All the way stand off to the side. This is a steel blade here, but it could come apart. I don't know. But I wouldn't want to be in front of it if it did. And of course you want to be wearing your safety glasses. Alright? So, that's how we're going to sharpen that. All the way around until I get back to the red, and that blade will be sharp. Very, very sharp. But if you want to see how to build that in depth, go see Jim Steinbrecker. I'll leave a link down below in the description to his website so you can, or to his YouTube video. Alright, for my planer blade sharpener, what I started out with was I mounted a block of wood on the saw, and I've got a runner, a hardwood runner here, and I've got T-nuts that run straight through. Okay. Now, I also cut a perpendicular dado right here to accept this one, which will allow this to move in and out very freely. So I can move this way and I can move this way. Alright, now these handles right here, they mount in here. They go down into the T-nut to hold the two pieces together, and that's my adjustment. I can in and out this way, and I can tighten them down. This piece here is a 45-degree block. Now, well, this piece right here is a 45-degree block. And what I did was I had my other saw blade in here, and I backed this up. I mounted this block here on my base plate, I guess you may say. I mounted this block on here, the clamps weren't there, and I moved it out to where I could get a perfectly square line along my table saw blade, so I know that this thing's in perfect alignment. And then I took and cut a little channel right down the edge, standing it up on edge on my router table, and I cut it a ½ inch. I think it's a ½ inch, or maybe 3/8. But I cut that'll be the stop for my blade. So my blade will sit right in here. Okay? So I've got that mounted. I've got a channel to lock the blade in, and back here is a blade stop. This right here, I just mounted that on the end just so the blade don't go past it. Okay? And the way this thing works is, and my planer, I sharpened all the blades that came on the planer, so and you saw how they were cutting, but I had already ordered 2 brand new sets of knives. But what you're going to do with these knives is they just mount in here, and be very careful, don't get yourself cut. Those knives are sharp. And just get it mounted right here in, all the way up flush, and turn your clamps and and just tighten the clamps down. Holding the blade in place, just tighten the clamps down. And you'll see that will hold that blade in there very, very securely. And all I did, I cut pieces that were about 1/4 inch. Well, maybe 3/8 inch thick right here, and I glued two wooden blocks on the ends. And as I clamp down in the middle of that, it puts a lot of pressure right on that knife. That knife is very secure in there. So the next thing, and the reason this is a 45 and that's 45 is because the bevel on the knife is a 45-degree angle. And by doing it this way, with the blade 90 degrees and my knife coming up to it, it cuts a 45-degree bevel on that knife. So it should match that bevel almost perfect. Okay, I'm good to go now. Alright. The thing is this is a tile saw blade. I don't know where I can get a diamond wheel that would actually be really good for sharpening, but this is a tile saw, and it goes, I've got it from my little circular saw, but it is diamond and it will cut this steel. It's just coarser. It's just much coarser than the sharpening wheel. But anyway, this is what I sharpen the blades with out there on the planer right now. You're going to loosen the nut up. You're going to move this up and set your blade height to where it just covers the whole bevel on your knife. And just slide this in until it barely touches the blade and lock it down. Then you're going to slide it back. I'm not going to touch that blade with that brand new knife right now because I'm not sharpening it. It's already sharp. It's brand new out of the pack. But once you get it tightened down, you slide it back and you bring it, you turn your saw on, you bring it straight through right there, and then I lift it up, set it back in, and push it through one more time. Turn the saw off, and move it in a little bit more until it barely touches the blade. Tighten these down, and do the same thing again. Back it out just a touch. Then you're going to back it out, turn your saw on. I like making 2 passes there just to make sure that if I did flex that blade in any way or anything like that, it'll be compensated for, and because I'm making 2 passes. And when you get done, you'll have a burr on the very bottom of your blade, and I take that burr. First of all, you take your blade out. Take your blade out. I'm going to lower this down so I can show you what I'm doing. My wet rock. And I'm just gonna knock that burr, lay the knife backing the back of the knife, and just go straight up the wet rock. Okay, and that'll take that burr off of there, and that thing will be razor sharp. But like I say, tile blades are not the best to do this with. If you can find a fine grit diamond blade, because these are very coarse, but that blade is what I sharpen the planer blades that's on that planer right now, and you know, they could be sharper if I had a better blade, but I don't. So if anybody knows where I can get a 7-inch diamond cutting wheel like that, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. But then that planer knife will be razor sharp. You'll have a 45-degree bevel, a nice smooth back here, and that thing will be ready to go on a planer, and you'll be good to go. All right. Well, okay. I think that just about covers most of the things I talked about. I did talk about a rip fence, but it's not finished yet. I'm trying to build one of the T-square type rip fences that, like Matthias Wendell did in one of his videos, or a couple of his videos. But I'm also trying to make it more of a Beesmeyer type clamping system and all on it, so it's going to be kind of a hybrid. Anyway, I hope you found the video informative. I really enjoyed building these tools and fixtures and stuff, and especially coming up with the planer blade sharpener design. That was an all-day event right there, trying to make sure I got that thing good and accurate and all that. But you always want to, make sure that your tools are sharp, because planer blades, saw blades, things like that, if you start burning wood, it's hard on your tools, it's hard on everything. You've already saw what abuse had done to that planer out there. That's actually a planer molder. Of course, I'll never use it for molding, but that's a really nice planer now. I've got about $250, $300 in it all together. The price tag is still on it at $890 something. So I got a good deal right there. And another thing too, my next video, hopefully I'll be showcasing what I got with the savings. Because when you make these things yourself and you save money, that gives you money for somewhere else that you can use for something that you can't build. And I think you're going to like my surprise. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I got me a one-way stronghold chuck on the way. Booyah. So, alright, you all have a good day, and we'll see you all down the road.